So, Clay, I thought that we'd start up this second episode of Star Trek Picard, its second season. It's called Penance. Before we get into it, with a quick discussion about the Borg Queen from the first episode wearing the mask is Picard's mother thing, because this has generated a lot of discussion on our Discord. I think the thing that probably maybe started it is Red Letter Media had a video where they did a review of the first episode, and that came as like, they played it off as some kind of like a revelation or something. To start off with, I thought that the Red Letter Media one was funny just because it seems clearly that Mike, one of the people in that video, like sneezed or something during the line where the Borg Queen says, "Look up" to Picard. Because I don't see the Borg. So there's two camps here to this argument. There's the Borg wearing the helmet in the first episode is going to be Picard's mother. And then there's the take that it's not going to be Picard's mother. And the reason that people would think that it is the mother is because they have the scene where in the flashback, Picard's mother says, "Look up to the stars" or whatever. And before he gets blown up in the ship by the Borg Queen looks at him and says, "Look up, Picard." And he gives her kind of like a "what the hell did you say to me" kind of look. Like, only my mother says that stuff.
It's not like she could have been in the crowd at Starfleet Academy when he gave that speech.
No.
Isn't that what doesn't he say that in the speech?
He does. He references his mother. Yeah, and he brings up the speech. I was a little.
If Q hadn't sent them back in time, the next part of that line would have been "Look up" was my favorite part of the speech.
Eyes up here. My mother always used to say "eyes up here," which I've turned into "look up." So I think that the funny thing about it is that it kind of seems to have. I don't know how to perceive this. Like I'm torn. I don't think that there is any way that the Borg Queen at the start wearing the helmet turns out to be Picard's mother, because if they are doing that, it's a terrible reveal because they've already kind of shown their hand that it has to be the mother because she said that, right? So there's two ways to play this. You can either have it be a red herring, which is what I think it is, and that they're just going to have the Queen say something that his mother has said, and it's not going to be his mother. Or you play your hand and you expose your hand early and you reveal to Picard and the audience that it is his mother in the first episode. And we spend the rest of the season going, how did this happen? The way that they've done it is to cover the face and conceal who it is and have her drop a mysterious line that implies that it's the mother. But I could be very wrong because I don't know what these writers are capable of for these shows, but it just doesn't seem any way possible to me that the Borg Queen can be the mother going forward. What do you say?
I am inclined to agree.
Could be wrong. I'm hedging everything with that. They could completely shock me with how they wrote this sequence of events.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because like if you think back to season 1 of Discovery, the internet parsed out that Ash Tyler was a secret Klingon after like an episode and a half.
Yes.
And that was a legitimate reveal that they were not trying to telegraph and they were actually trying to use as a huge reveal. So I would have to assume for them to be this blatant about putting a masked figure who happens to know Picard's mom's favorite quote, I have to assume the purpose of that is a red herring. Otherwise,
why conceal her face is the thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there is some possibility that I think there's a third possibility that maybe it is still going to be a reveal, and then from that point they're going to work backwards to show you why that happened, which I don't think is going to be very interesting.
But why? You mean a reveal of the mother?
Yes.
But why cover her face at that point then?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a really good question, because I mean, if anything, it's more shocking if she shows up and she's like, "Hey, son."
Yeah, that's what I mean, because then you'd spend this whole thing going like, "Wow, how did this all happen?" But
right. Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I guess you're supposed to think that anyway if it implies that it's mother, but I don't understand. Like, I don't know. I just don't see what the point of giving that line is at that point.
Yeah. Well, I like the one thing that I will say that is in the camp of it's his mother and it's just a poorly conceived mystery that they're going to reveal and everyone's going to be dissatisfied by it, is that in season 2 of Discovery, as soon as the Red Angel thing showed up, everybody was like, oh, it's Michael Burnham in the suit, which is exactly ultimately what happened.
Mm-hmm. But they never had a character outright say something that implied that that's the case. Or like, this is not a this is not a case of incredible internet detective work. It's a character literally says something.
Yes. Yeah. I do think it is not. I have to believe that it's not his mother because I don't understand how that mystery plays into anything else that has happened so far in these 2 episodes.
Right.
Which makes me inclined to believe that it's either a character we have yet to meet or that will mean something to Picard later, or it is like Agnes or something.
Let's get into it then. This is Penance. It's the 2nd episode of the 2nd season of Star Trek Picard. It came out on March 10th, 2022. Teleplay goes to Akiva Goldsman, Terry Matalas, and Christopher Monfett. Story credit goes to Michael Chabon, Akiva Goldsman, Terry Matalas, and Christopher Monfett. Directed by Douglas Arniokoski, in-universe date 2401. In this episode called Penance, which I feel like I have to say like Delancey, Penance. Picard finds himself transported to an alternative timeline in the year 2400, which might be, I don't know, that contradicts with what the other thing said. Anyway, where his longtime nemesis, Q, has orchestrated one final trial. Picard searches for his trusted crew as he attempts to find the cause of this dystopian future, this dystopian totalitarian nightmare future that he's found himself in. First of all, I want to say thanks to all the patrons. We had a tremendous showing in the new patron section here. The Patreon increased quite dramatically with the Picard coverage. So thank you, everybody, for showing up. I feel like Jimmy from South Park. I'm like, wow, what a great audience. But it's really appreciated. It's much appreciated. Very kind, very generous of you. And here we go. No further ado. We'll get into Penance, Clay. I'm going to ask you a question. If you could go back in time and you can do one of 2 things, you can kill baby Hitler, or you can kill the guy who will eventually write Mirror, Mirror for TOS. Which one do you choose to do to stop the torture that we're being put through at this point in our lives?
Yeah. I don't understand why they keep going back to this well. This is one of the more, it's tough because some of the stuff they're tossing around in this episode is kind of fun. But ultimately this alternate present that they are presenting brings 0 new concepts to the table. And I just like, I felt my problem with this show so far is like, I'm having a really hard time like keying into anything and like why should I care about any of this?
Yeah. That's a typical reaction to the modern Trek, I think.
Yeah. In this whole episode, like at the end of the episode when they got caught, I actually kind of went, ugh. Because I didn't want to spend any more time here. I just want them to get moving.
To the past.
Like, they don't present any interesting ideas that make me want to hang around and explore this present that they're in. And it just felt like everything was just sort of like going through the motions in order to get to the main body of the story.
Yeah.
And so, which makes me feel like, you know, we're coming back next week. I don't think that I think I saw a clip from like a teaser clip, and I'm pretty sure they don't actually spend much time here. I think they get off. I think they get away from the first man pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. But still, it's just like it didn't make me go, oh shit, how are they going to get out of this? It made me go, oh shit, we have to do this again.
Right? Yeah, we have to deal with this guy. I know.
And like, I don't know. I don't find it to be a future that is really like, what is Picard learning from this future? I'm confused. I guess I'm just kind of confused about like what the narrative line is supposed to be here. 'Cause you know, you got the thing with the Borg Queen, the Borg shows up, the Borg seems to be wanting help and is doing something in a way where the Borg Queen is indicating that she knows Picard on some level that may or may not be related to his mother. She's not killing anybody on the ship. And then she's plugging into the ship, blah, 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 blah. And then we find out in this episode that Q has used that moment to remove them from this timeline.
Yeah.
And put them in this new timeline in order for them to go back in time to fix something to straighten out the timeline.
Yeah, that Q implies Picard knows what it is too. Mm-hmm. And another thing of no character will ever just say what the hell is going on. They have to just hint at it.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Why? I mean, maybe this is the question they want you to ask, but like, why did Q interfere? Like, I don't understand how these two things are connected. Like,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I just like, what is the catalyst moment that connects whatever was happening on the Stargazer to whatever is going to happen in the past?
Right, to create an alternate timeline that Q would care about to show Picard at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
I just found it kind of, it seemed very disconnected to me. And maybe it's just a matter of it only being the second episode in this, the story they're telling, which is, I'm totally willing to accept that. But like, I almost kind of wish this was the first episode.
Right.
Because like Picard waking up and finding himself, the first episode, he wakes up and he's in the middle of this alternate future or alternate present, and Q is there and he's like, I'm freaking out, Picard, and it's all your fault. Like, that's a great way to open a season. I don't know.
It is.
I don't know why we needed to do all that other shit, but
yeah, well, they had a better episode that they wanted to put out first, I think, and then they were like, well, yeah. And then Penance comes in. Yeah, I think my thing, like, I found this to be a pretty tedious episode of the show in a lot of ways. Like I think it's a big step down from the first episode. It feels like a lot of new Trek stuff has come back into play that they want to do all the time, and I never think is very effective. Here's my biggest thing about it. It's like 55 minutes long, and I think that this show just screams insecurity about who we are writing the show for, right? So on one hand, you have Q returning to Picard. He brings him into this thing. They have this scene where all these skulls are in his alternate timeline house, right? It's the people he's conquered. Now, and Q starts going through them, and if you're familiar with Star Trek, you go, oh, it's every character who's ever had a recurring guest appearance on the show is going to show up as a skull. If you're unfamiliar with that, right?
This is the skull of Mick Fleetwood.
He played a fishman early in TNG's days. So
I bet you can't tell me which fish he was.
So if you're watching this and you're familiar with it, you go, oh, I know all these things. And it's a little weird that we know every single character of the skulls that are named. If you're unfamiliar with the show, it's probably more impactful because you don't actually realize how small of the universe is that they're painting at that time. And you kind of go, oh, okay, he conquered a great number of people. So they're extremely eager to do all these Star Trek callbacks. Q references multiple Star Trek episode titles in this. He references In a Mirror Darkly and Yesterday's Enterprise by name.
I thought the most egregious one was when they were standing out looking over the wine field.
Yes, the vineyard.
Says, look, he says, look out there at that encounter at Far Point, Part 1.
It was a little bit on the nose. So they're bringing in all these Star Trek references, right? Everything is an Easter egg. Everything, all these weapons on the thing, if you look at all the Star Trek sites, are props from previous Star Trek stuff. So what happens in the episode is that now this is a modern Star Trek television show. And they can't write, in the old days, what used to happen is that if you had a time travel episode or you went into an alternate universe, all the characters would wake up in this universe, right? And Data or Spock would pull out a tricorder and go, we're in an alternate universe where all these things have gone bad. And you go, okay, I understand. We got limits of time. They're going to blast through this. In modern Star Trek, the characters stumble around for 45 fucking minutes going, what is going on? What's happening? How can this be? Until they all get together. And then Picard and Seven, who have been to 10 million alternate universes between the two of them, have to go, this is an alternate universe. This is not our universe. Something has happened that split the timeline, much like that yesterday's Enterprise episode. I wonder how this could be. To me, this episode just drags because the characters act like they've never been here before. Like this has never happened to these Star Trek characters, and it's so infuriating to me. I just want someone to pull out a tricorder and say, "We're in an alternate future. How the hell do we fix this at this point?"
Yeah, actually, one of our Discord members, I can't remember who it was, said that the biggest proof that the people who are writing this don't realize they're writing Star Trek is that when Seven wakes up, she doesn't immediately say computer and program.
Yes, she does her testing the pain and the smell and the taste and everything, but doesn't just ask to show arch or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like it's kind of, I find it to be kind of a retread of the previous episode. That's why I kind of said like you could actually start the season with this episode, because it's actually kind of a more interesting way to dip back into these characters, to dip in through this alternate universe thing. In which case, them coming together actually feels like, oh, they have to find each other. Whereas we already saw them do that in the last episode, and now they got to do it again. Except now they all have to go, I'm a bad guy. Yeah. And it's just
kill them all.
I don't know. Yeah. Like, and there's so many small things. I really try not to get too picky with this stuff if I can help it. But like Rios is a colonel in this Confederation army and he's still the only person on his fucking ship.
Yeah, and he's still just in a freighter ship. Apparently.
Yeah, why is he still the only person? He's a colonel on this ship attacking Vulcan, and it's just him.
And he just fucks off too, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, he just tells everybody to go ahead. He just leaves. Also, man, they are really banking on fixing what's going on because they let a lot of people die.
Yeah.
There are so many people who get killed directly or indirectly in this. It really makes me think that they're banking on correcting the timeline, that they're definitely going to fix this.
It's a good point about the ship, though. Yeah, I didn't realize he was just by himself. I mean, obviously he is by himself, but I was just struck by he's in the same ship, which is not a military ship. Yeah.
The other tiny thing was at the end, during Annihilation Day or Eradication Day or whatever, when Picard is standing there with a fucking gun to the head of the
for 15-minute scene where he has to slowly raise his gun.
He is standing, pointing a gun in the direction of the president of the Confederation. Yes. And nobody seems to care. If he had just clicked that gun like 15 degrees to the left, he could have assassinated the president. And like, I don't know, it seems like a tiny detail maybe, but it's like, it's stuff like that where it's like, oh, I mean, no, that would never happen. You would never let somebody with a gun point it in the general. Not only is it in the general direction of the president, but it's like 15 other people.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Those are two tiny nitpicks, but like, yeah, I feel like they're retreading a lot of ground in a lot of ways in this episode. I actually kind of liked the skull room. I didn't mind the name drops as much as some people did. Because I think at least in that specific scene, the names that they're dropping are people who are in positions of power.
Yeah, they're important.
That we know. Yeah, like Sarek and it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like you have to make a decision for yourself when you come to these things. We've said this a million times. If you're going to watch Star Trek, you're going to want to see Star Trek stuff. So like everybody has their own threshold for what that means, I guess, because like if I feel like there's such a glut of larger universe stuff these days that people forget that 25 years ago, it was fucking crazy every time something that you knew showed up.
Sure.
And like, for instance, like in Batman Forever, Bruce Wayne, just in casual conversation, says the word Metropolis and people lost their fucking minds. And now people seem to think they are sick of it. But like what I like about that stuff, especially in a show like Picard, which is in the future, is that it does draw everything together and make it feel like it's more of a singular universe.
Yes.
But I do understand the idea that doing that too much makes that universe feel really small.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I guess that the point that I would try to hit at is that I think it does make it too small. Like, it's not that he name drops one name and a bunch of other names that you've never heard of. It's like every character is someone that you could name and identify.
Sure.
But why did they do the pacing thing then? Like, my biggest gripe with it, outside of like the constant Easter egg dropping, is that the show then chooses to write itself as if these characters have never lived in a Star Trek universe before. Like,
sure,
Raffi has never heard of the Q. You know?
Yeah. Well, you know,
that's startling.
Who does know about Q really?
I mean, I guess you could say that there are a lot of godlike beings, but like the Q gave us the Q are the reason that we know about the Borg, for instance, and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of Q members, and like other series have had Q interactions and stuff like that. I don't know. I feel like it should be as like I'm spitballing. I feel like the Q would be as well known as like the Klingons or Borg in this universe. Like, I don't know.
That doesn't bother me that much because I like when I think back to the show, the number of people that Q actually interacts with is not really that many. And that sort of thing that they've run into the Q a lot fewer times than they've run into most of the other species, the well-known ones anyway. And yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't really bother me. On the one hand, it's like, yeah, okay, sure. But on the other hand, it doesn't really bother me that much because Q is kind of a thing where that is so heady that unless you've experienced it personally or have read the specific reports that Picard wrote or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't see a reason why everybody would need to know who Q is.
I find it to be so I guess you could say that in the older Star Trek series, if someone said the Q, there would not be this sort of record screech halt where no one is aware of what's going on. Some character would go, I've heard of the Q. And they would deliver a little bit of exposition about what they're supposed to be. And I think that the difference there is that feels to me like a yes and kind of writing thing. And Raffi going, who the hell are these alphabet people, is like this like pulls you out of the moment thing where you become aware that this is not really a universe that they're in. This is like a commentary on a universe at that point.
Well, yeah, I guess I could agree that the language that they use is not great, but the actual concept of Raffi not knowing who Q is, it doesn't really bother me that much.
Sure. Would you say that?
Although, on the other hand, I'm sure Picard talks about you get a couple drinks in Picard, I bet all he talks about is Q.
She wouldn't know. They're clean and sober at this point. They're kind of minor. I guess I'll get off that track just because I think that it's like those are new Trek tropes that I generally just don't really agree with. Sure. I think that the larger problem for me is the pacing thing that I talked about before. It's like 40 minutes of this episode is the characters apparently never realizing that they've been in alternate universes. And they're like trying to figure out what this means. How could this be? Picard asking Q about 15 times in 20 minutes. He's like, what the hell is going on, Q? And Q never answers them, and it gets a little bit frustrating. So let's talk about this mirror universe that they've moved into, because it is a mirror universe for all intents and purposes.
Doesn't somebody say that, actually?
Do they? Do they just say this is like the mirror universe?
No, I think it's more... It's more of those. It's one of those things where it's like this is some kind of. He's put us into some kind of mirror universe.
Oh, sure.
Like where they're not even
close reference.
Yeah, like it's a reference being written in by the writers, but the people who are saying it don't understand the reference. If that makes sense.
Yeah. What do you want? Some kind of Star Trek?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I might be wrong, but I thought maybe Seven says it at some point, but I could be wrong.
She might. So the biggest new Trek trope to me, and people have been discussing this on the Discord, and they were talking about it before we had a chance to record, so I'm going to feel less intelligent for actually thinking a thought. It's that internet phenomenon where you think you're smart until you realize that a million other people have thought things before you ever thought of them. The problem with this mirror universe stuff, aside the fact that we've been through it a million times, is that I'm coming to this, as I mentioned on the Patreon special, one of the content consumptions a while ago. I read 1984 recently, right? And the problem with these mirror universe totalitarian things that Orwell nailed precisely is that in 1984, the universe that he built feels like a world that is possible in our immediate future. Like that you can see yourself in that universe, and the way that people go about it is a kind of exaggerated version of what you see now. So it's like the 2-minute hate thing, which is the propaganda sessions in 1984, is like a social media thing where it's a mob gets together and just gets infuriated about something, and they all sort of like rally around that idea. The group think, there's the ministry of, they call things the ministry of love. It means the opposite and stuff like that. It's controlling language is a power source, and if you can control how people talk and what they're allowed to think, then you have all the power in that situation. All this stuff feels like things that you see in your day-to-day life right now, right? Like I can go out and I see that, and I see the dark version of how something like that could come about. These totalitarian nightmares that they call them are so detached from reality that it's meaningless when you end up in it, because there's no indication of how the Federation or whatever slides into this setup. There's no there's no ledge that I can grab onto where they go, oh, like this is where, once they started doing this thing, it all slid downhill, and this is like a warning to be that kind of a thing. The only thing that hints at here is that like it's laughable, but like global warming is partially responsible for whatever happened.
Yeah,
and it's so broad, and they're only doing it because people know that words like confederacy are bad and totalitarian is bad. And I just find it really frustrating because it's all window dressing and there's nothing actually under any of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before. I said this all the time we were talking about Mirror Universe on Discovery, and I probably said it during Enterprise. The Mirror Universe is a tool to literally hold a mirror up to a dark version of your characters, right? And it's supposed to create...
That's why it works in TOS so well, because it's the easiest case to do that, yeah.
It's supposed to create an alternate universe where different decisions were made and shows you what could have been if you did X, Y, and Z. I don't know who I'm supposed to hook into from that standpoint in this. Is it like, if it's Picard... I mean, is any of this really his fault? I mean, clearly, if the change...
It happened 300 years before this happened.
If the change happened in 2024 and this general 300 years later is a megalomaniac, I'm not going to blame him.
Right.
If that's the trajectory the world has been on. So, like, and it's like, none of the other characters, they're not showing me, like, a dark version of what they are. I don't know. It's just and so it's the same, and it actually it compounds it when you add in time travel, because time travel stories are done for the exact same reason.
Yes,
time travel stories are meant to show you a possible future, or the reason things happen, or it's all based on like choices and changing things, and showing you like thematically mirrors and stuff like that. I don't know what this time travel thing is for. I don't know what the 300 years ago is going to be the thing where it's like, oh, I understand what they're going. Obviously, that's why you watch the show, to figure these things out.
Yeah.
But like, I just don't have a grasp on like what they're going for here, other than let's just do an alternate future. Oh, let's send them back in time. And yeah, it's this totalitarian government thing. It just doesn't. I agree with you. It doesn't ring true. It doesn't present a version of the present that is any different than. It's basically a vision of the present that's kind of like an internet argument brought to life. Yeah, where it's like somebody goes, "Well, I mean, isn't the Federation really the villain?" And it's like, well, what if we expand on that and take it as literally as possible?
I found it was. I don't know if it's explicitly doing this, but I feel like it was a bad choice. Not that they had any control, but it was a bad choice for this to come out during like the Ukrainian crisis that's happening right now. Yeah. It's like it kind of undercuts, because I don't know if they're going to do this, but this is coming from a kind of place where like it's making a very moral relativist argument about like we could be that bad, kind of, you know?
Right. I think that's the thing they're probably going for, which is I don't know if mirror universe works in that sense, where it's like the mirror that you're actually, the thing they're actually reflecting is life outside the show.
Right.
Because I feel like that's probably the thing that they're going for, where it's like, oh, actually, because of stuff that happens in our present, 2024, it sends the world on a trajectory of awfulness.
Yeah, you better shape up if you want the Gene Roddenberry universe to
yeah.
You got to stop. Start using Teslas and stuff like that.
We're on track. We're pretty damn close to World War III, so it might be closer than people think.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a weird flex because I don't know. They're gonna have to do some pretty interesting stuff coming up to sell me on any of this.
Well, to go back to your point about you were saying that you were hedging against someone will say that, yeah, like this is episode 2. This is why we watch the show, to see what's happening. This is we're just kind of repeating ourselves, because this is what New Trek does. Like in a better written show, there would be a kind of hint at what is coming or what is happening to you. So like they wouldn't explicitly say it, but you'd at least see some tracks on the ground that the writers are like, we know where we're going and we're going to sort of clue you in on how these things are working out at this point. There can still be a mystery, but you're at least going to be established in this space where you can recognize what the twisted version is, like why this is affecting Picard and the crew this way, why they would choose to make a decision that they're going to do. And New Trek doesn't choose to do that. It chooses to keep this relentless pace thing going, where it's like, now we're in this mirror universe, and now everyone's going to decide to do the right thing and switch back, and there's no real time to spend sitting in what this universe means and where it came from and what it could mean for Picard. That's all going to have to rely on the sci-fi hijinks that are sure to come in the next couple episodes. And I think that's the criticism of it, is that you're allowed to have mysteries like this and you're allowed to build towards a finale. But, you know, this is like the 6th New Trek season where people say, just wait till the finale wraps everything up, and you get there and you go, well, it didn't wrap a goddamn thing up. So it's repetitive.
And like, what do they actually gain narratively in this episode?
Not much.
They couldn't have done in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's my thing. Whip out the tricorder and say, this is a weird universe. Let's get the Borg Queen and get out of here.
Yeah, it's just a strange... I agree. The pacing is so strange, because it's like they're spending so much time having every single character go, whoa, this is crazy.
Don't even really see all that awful of stuff. Like the battle against the Vulcans is maybe the worst of it, but you don't see any executions. You don't see any...
Right.
You know? It's Picard watches a strangely acted version of him pretending to be a totalitarian general, which I didn't really care for, and stuff like that. But it's not... I don't know. It's not like a bloodbath where they're horrified by where they are. And I know it's not that kind of a sequence, but at the same time, Elnor cut the throat of like 3 guys, and blood was spraying all over the place. Yeah.
Raffi didn't even bat an eye. He just murdered somebody, well, a couple people, and she didn't even like go, oh, Jesus Christ, calm down, man.
Yeah.
He went straight for the throat. I mean, first of all, the fact that the Starfleet Delta is now a shuriken is pretty fun.
Yes, that's fun.
Razor blade knife, that's pretty good. But yeah, it's I don't know why I feel like when you're dealing with this stuff, mirror universes and time travel, especially if you're doing both at the same time, you have to be pretty clear with your line of with your narrative line and causality and like what you're trying to say and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest problem for me, is I just don't know. They're making it too complicated, because it's a mirror universe thing, but it's also a time travel thing, but it's also a mystery about stuff that happens in the present. And it's too much for something like this.
Yeah. something's wrong with Q at the same time. Yeah.
Right. Like I'm interested in that part.
Yes. That's
I'm interested in, it explains why he's not acting like the Q that we were talking about last episode. It seemed like he wasn't really acting like Q.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. When this episode started, I was like, oh, Delancey's actually going a bit too broad too. But they mentioned that that's a choice, and so I applaud that acting decision at that point.
And I'm really interested in the Girardi Borg Queen moment at the end.
Yes.
I'm really curious to see, because that's an instance where I think they actually did some really nice storytelling, because they've spent 2 episodes essentially setting Girardi up as someone who's kind of lonely all the time and doesn't really belong to anything. And then all of a sudden, fucking Jerry Dandridge from next door walks over and says, hey, how'd you like to be a vampire?
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like that's probably where that's going, which I find interesting, because it's like, from the Borg Queen's standpoint, I'm fascinated by how they think they're going to control her.
No, that's the big problem is like, well, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that ties into my thing of why this takes 45 minutes before they recognize that there's a problem. There's like, they're in an alternate universe. This Borg Queen is, you know, to go super like nerdy references, like when Q introduces them to the Borg in that second season episode of TNG, he describes them as relentless. You'll just never stop them. They'll keep coming. You can damage them. They'll fix themselves. They'll keep coming at you. They are relentless. Is this whole thing about them. The Borg Queen should be a terrifying thing, right? Like the Borg Queen is not something that at the end of this, you just kind of willy-nilly plug into the ship to see what happens and stuff like that. Like, you should keep your distance. The thing should never be trying to stop going for what it's trying to go for. You shouldn't be like manually pushing it around on something. I find that all
wearing it like a backpack.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a Ratchet and Clank or something. I just find that all really strange, and from a place that is so willing to like make Star Trek references, it's those fundamental character and like species interactions that I find they don't seem to understand very well, or they're choosing to change them, and not in a way that I feel is connected to what I know about them. So it's not that they're changing them and I don't like the change. It's that there's a change happening and I don't understand why they're doing this, because I don't think that the story justifies Picard and them treating this most dangerous creature like she's an old friend.
Yeah. Like the only way that I'll be able to justify the way that they're treating the Borg Queen is if, when they get back to the past, the Borg Queen immediately tries to start assimilating everybody she can possibly find.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, she went along with them because she realizes basically the plot of First Contact.
Right. This is another ticket to the
yeah, just go back before the Federation happened, assimilate the entire planet, and bingo bongo, we don't have to worry about the Federation.
Yes.
Who cares what timeline we're in? So yeah,
that's fine.
But if she's just like helping, I don't know about that. But well, you don't just plug the fucking Borg Queen into your ship. That was the thing in the first episode everybody was freaking out about.
Yeah. I mean, my hesitancy comes from the first season. My often repeated thing is that the Borg sequence of getting back on the cube and the cube powering up again was so mishandled and does not understand what the Borg are supposed to represent. They're like, I think it comes down to like seven here talks to the Borg Queen a bit, and she's like, she gets angry. She's like, how many of you killed? You've killed millions. And to me, it's a fundamental understanding of the fact that the Borg have killed a lot of people is not what makes the Borg scary to me.
Right. Yeah.
It's beyond that. It's a greater thematic thing about it's the 1984 thing. Like once they make you change your mind, they've beaten you. And they do that by forcing you to change your mind about stuff. And that's what's actually terrifying about them. The fact that they kill people is not, the Klingons have killed millions of people, I'm sure, but you don't speak to them in that way. You know, it just doesn't align with what I expect from that species.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Unfortunately, the Borg have just been on a downward trajectory ever since they first showed up.
But I feel you can rescue them. That's what's so frustrating.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think so too. But I don't know why everybody wants to be friends with them.
Yeah,
I mean,
they do.
I get it to a certain point where it's like, you know, the final frontier for the Federation is making peace with someone like the Borg.
Yeah, which is a nice mirror to, in the mirror universe, it's conquering them, which is, I thought was
right.
I liked everything about the Borg relationship in the mirror universe where they've actually beaten them. I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It's I just I don't know. We'll see. I have a feeling we were joking. You were talking about how silly it is to you that they just have like a severed torso of a Borg queen bopping around.
Yep, being pushed around. They're manually like push her around in a little cart. Yeah, and
I said that I feel like they might pull some bullshit sci-fi shenanigans where when they go back to the past, somehow she ends up visually looking like a fully like a human.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't
just be a human in a wheelchair, just to explain like the no leg thing, just sort of like driving around.
No, I mean like full body. I don't know how they're going to do it, but it's going to be like, oh, the Borg Queen is actually just a blonde person who doesn't require makeup. This is great.
She looks beautiful. Looks terrific. I could actually see the Borg Queen being killed in the next episode after she sends them into the past. I could see that.
It's probably not a bad idea. I mean, I think it's more fun if she sticks around.
It is, yeah.
You know, especially because I think the stuff with Girardi is interesting.
I despise Agnes Girardi, though. Who mandated that every show must have a female character that's neurotic and talks too much?
Yeah.
Where did this come from?
I did like her excuse, that long-winded, fast-talking excuse that she gave for
7 shots or whatever.
Yeah, I like that. I thought that was fun.
I think she's, I don't know. I don't like that character. I don't think she was that bad in the first season, but she's just Tilly 2.0 in this, and we already have a Tilly. I don't know why we need not in the show, but we already have one in Discovery.
My official prediction is that it's going to be Agnes inside that suit.
Yeah. She gets swayed by the ways of the conversation technique of the Borg and then somehow flies back in time to warn Picard about something. Yeah,
I think it's going to be one of those things where she is in fact like sacrificing herself.
Yep.
I don't know if that means by the end of the they're only doing 3 seasons. I could see them writing that character out of the show very easily.
Yes. No one's safe, I don't think, at this show.
Yeah.
But mostly because so many of them are so unimportant that you could lose them at any moment and not care.
Yeah, and the way that they're setting her up as someone who's looking for a purpose and all this kind of stuff, I think it's probably going to be Agnes.
Did you find Patton Oswalt as the cat incredibly distracting?
Yes.
I found it unbelievably distracting.
I love Patton Oswalt, but they keep hiring him for the same characters now. And his voice is so recognizable that it is incredibly distracting. He plays, and at the end of spoilers for Eternals, but he shows up as a character at the end of Eternals that he's doing the voice for, and it's the same kind of character where it's like it's just that Patton Oswalt kind of fantasy character approach.
Yep.
And it's like there's so many people. Why does it have to be? I mean, I love him, but it's like there's a lot of other people out there.
Yeah. It's just another thing of it. It takes me out of the world. Like I just don't feel that this show really respects the world that it's in all that much.
Yeah, you know, it's one of these things where it's like when we were going through TNG, right? One of the things that I brought up all the time that was kind of a running joke for me was the fact that they don't have photographs.
Yes.
Which they eventually do, and it is kind of weird when they show up. But like the fact that there is no photographs is like a conscious choice that they've made for this universe.
Right.
And I don't feel that in these new Star Trek shows. These just feel like Star Trek. And I mean, on the one hand, it's like, well, you know, they can do so much more now, so they just expand your horizons to what the universe could be like. It's like, yeah, but I mean, it's all the same shit. It's like nothing interesting. It doesn't, none of it feels like Star Trek. It's And it just feels like the world itself is not really that considered in a way that it has been previously on previous shows.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, it just starts to pile up. So when you get to, oh, everybody, she made herself a cartoon friend. It's like, well, that's, I don't want to be one of those people who's like, well, that's not Star Trek, but it just feels like it's not really considered for like the world that they're occupying and the story they're telling.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I think otherwise, character-wise, I think that the show at this point is sort of struggling to understand why it has so many returning characters in it. I don't feel people are serving a particularly interesting purpose. Like, Seven, just because they all move into positions where they can interact with each other, and it's all very convenient that they're all there. I think that
it's so weird. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's so weird that everybody knows that they're in the wrong timeline. Because usually how these things work is you go back in time, one person knows. And so then you get to be like, oh, shit. In this timeline, my best friend is a horrible murderer who also happens to be the president. It's that kind of thing. So it is different that they're doing that, but it also feels weird because it does take that level of introspection and what if away from it with everybody who's on the show just knows that they're in the wrong timeline. I'm not saying they shouldn't have done that, but it's just an interesting choice.
Yeah, I think it adds to another pacing thing. It's like they're all separated, but it's not really very difficult to get them all together. Even though they seem incredible distances apart from each other and trying to figure out where they are and stuff like that, it doesn't ultimately amount to anything. I thought that the absolute worst scene in this, I thought, was Rios and Agnes having some kind of relationship conversation. Whatever the hell was going on. I think that's terrible.
When else are they going to do it when not in peril trying to decrypt a shield generator or some shit? Got to talk about something, Wes.
I don't like that. And mostly I don't like it because it rings so untrue to me as a conversation topic, or the way that they're going about talking about that. It's just like it's not anything right. That's
the kind of conversation you have like 3 episodes from now, because I didn't even remember they were like a thing.
I forgot they were having sex. I did too.
Yeah.
That Borg vagina ship just brought it all coming back to everybody. Anything else to talk about with this one? I liked Delancey.
Yeah, he was good.
I like the fact that he's acting he's broadening it up a little bit. The Picard picks up on the fact that he's getting sick or something's wrong with him. I think that's the most interesting aspect of it. I'm so much more interested in the Q stuff. Yeah.
But the thing about the Q stuff though is like, if I was Picard, I mean, I guess he's in a different timeline, so he can't do this. But if Q showed up and was like freaking out and glitching out, I would fuck those people. I'd go get Data. And I'd go get, Data's dead, but I'd go get, everybody on the Enterprise. I'd get those guys and be like, guys, Q is fucked up.
Yeah.
We need to go do something about this, which is why that's what I wrote it into the story that I was going to do. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what they end up doing. I don't know.
Yeah. But, they can go find Lore. He's probably a good guy in this universe.
That's true. Did you catch the king or whatever? I guess he must be like the founder of whatever is a Sung.
I saw that Spiner he was in the teaser after the first episode that we didn't talk about, but he's in that briefly.
It's really quick, but in one
king?
of those like, yeah, I don't know what he is. I think he's like the founder or something, because they do like a quick crane shot going over like the city.
Oh, with that statue thing?
Yeah, there's like a hologram statue that says whatever the dystopian line.
Wait, he's the founder of the Confederacy?
I think so, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because the voice that says it is very clearly Spiner's voice.
Yeah.
But you've only heard Picard say it up to that point, so I think it's very easy to miss it. But I did, as I heard, it's like, oh, that's Spiner. And then I looked at the thing, and it's like, that's his face, too, but it's far away. Mm-hmm. So I think probably that's how, I assume that they're going back in time, and whatever this Confederacy is that's being founded is probably, the linchpin is probably him.
Yeah. Yeah. Shame he can't be the character from Independence Day and just tie that
that would be great
into a bow. Yeah.
It's also a shame that the 2024 of Star Trek Picard is going to be much different than the 2021 or whatever it is from Deep Space Nine, where it was all just homeless people and street warfare.
Yeah, so I think that we're done with this one. General takeaway is just I thought that this was just meandering and not as good as the first episode, and I think that it went back to its old New Trek well of tricks a little bit too often for me to really enjoy it. Although I wouldn't say I hated this one on the level of Discovery, but that's really damned with faint praise. Like I watched it and I was invested in it. I just thought it was far too long and not giving me the goods that I need to know right away. I need to know something about this universe, and they just haven't given me that yet.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it just felt like running in place to me. Like they weren't really moving the story forward in any meaningful way outside of the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes. And even there, it didn't. I mean, they weren't really moving it forward that much because, like I said, at the end of the episode, I was like, "Shit, we have to do this again next week." I guess.
Yes. Teaser for next week doesn't look good either. Really.
I don't think I saw it. I saw a clip, but I didn't see it. I don't think I saw like a whole episode teaser thing.
Yeah, I saw it on YouTube. It wasn't after the episode, but it was definitely a teaser for
what.
The next
What was in it?
It's a lot of there was no indication that they jumped to the past. It was all in the totalitarian space range.
Oh, it was okay. Because the thing I saw was a clip of the Borg Queen taking control of the ship.
Yeah, they showed the Borg Queen in this teaser, and she's sort of like strung up, hanging from her wires from the ceiling.
Yeah, maybe it is the same thing I saw.
Okay.
Well, whatever.
But it was just a lot of them flying around in the ship saying, like, get out of here. We got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Why is it taking so long to just get to the point is my thing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Great question. Because, like, if you look at the last season, right, they had the thing with the robot girl. And, you know, there's like something they're actively chasing there. And so I understand why they're doing all this other stuff on the road to figuring out what's going on there. Yeah. I don't get that from these two episodes. And like all of the things that they are putting in the way as like questions feel very kind of contrived. And like if you, even from the beginning of the last episode, that teaser where it's like, the Stargazer's under attack and the Borg person, everybody's blowing up and shit. And then they do the 2 days earlier thing. It just like, it's all seems very manipulative in a way that I can't parse out as being like a well-told story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's another reason why I was like, I feel like I wish they had just started with this episode because maybe it wouldn't have been great, but it at least would have it would have made the meandering of this episode feel a lot less meandering, I guess.
Right, yeah, because you're just being reintroduced to the world and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right, I guess we're done. Did you have any final thoughts, or did I just blank out what you said your final piece? You didn't like it as much as the first one.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Like, imagine if the first episode of this season was Picard having his talk with Laris about like regrets and wishing he could do stuff differently or whatever, and then he gets fucking blitzed and he passes out. And then he wakes up the next morning and he's in an alternate future, and then Q's like, "Hey, buddy, guess what?" I mean, I don't know. That seems like such more traditional pacing, and I don't mean that in like a I missed the way TV was back then, but it's just like it's getting to the goods quicker. You get a little bit of stuff at the beginning, and then it's in the future, and nobody knows where everybody is. You know, it just seems a little bit tighter to me to do it that way. But.
Yeah, for me, it's not comparison to the old Trek styles. It is in sort of tone and intentionality, as you were talking about. But I just think even as a storytelling product, as a narrative, I never think that these things are doing the right decisions in what they're choosing to do. It's kind of. I'm shocked by how. I frequently feel while watching this, I go, wow, this feels incredibly amateurish. Like it just feels like people who have never made television before were allowed to make a show. And that comes down to like just how reliant on cliche it is too. It's like
Nick Cliche from 98 Degrees.
Exactly. Yeah. My favorite member of that. It's so many moments in these episodes of Picard and Discovery are the tropey thing that would happen, you know? And it's not even like a Star Trek tropey thing. It's just like this character says, well, that's a hell of a thing, or something like that. You know, there's like, I know that in that Strange New Worlds teaser, I could almost bet my life that he's going to be chopping wood, and they're going to come up and say, "You need Chris. We need you back." And he says, "I told you I was out." And they say they took Betty or whatever, and that's going to pull him back in. You know, it's just like it's all set up in this incredibly cliche to the point of parody way. And I feel that this show is not much different.
The John Matrix special.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to talk. Should we talk about that teaser at all?
We can. We got 3 minutes until the hour, so I think that'll kill it.
Well, first off, before we get into that, the one thing that would keep me really invested in Picard is 4 words: Ben Sisko, time cop.
Yes, he could be the Watcher.
Yeah, if they send Sisko back into the past to chase Picard, excellent.
I think that Avery Brooks would actually like be spectacular in that kind of a role.
Oh yeah, unbelievable. But yeah, I have thoughts about that teaser. Yeah, the riding the horse with the long hair and the beard. It's like, I don't know when it became shorthand for television characters who have beards to be troubled, and then
they say we need you back, Chris, in that episode.
Yeah,
yeah.
Everybody does that now. It's like you got a beard at the beginning of the season until they're like, you decide to come back into the shit, and then you shave your beard. I'd like to see the guy do the whole show with the beard.
Yeah, just so you know,
so
I like
I can see myself represented on TV. Representation matters, is what I'm saying, for me specifically, and nobody else.
I didn't care for that. Yeah, I didn't care for that teaser too much. I might have been overly negative. I thought that there was not an incredible lean towards episodic storytelling from what I was looking at it. I watched it again, and I guess I can see a little bit of it there, but it's the overarching thing that they're pushing is this sort of hero's journey for Pike, is what it sounds like. And I don't see that being an extremely episodic story.
Well, it kind of brings up a larger issue that I would like to talk about briefly. I don't know why modern Star Trek, with the exception of, let's just say modern live action Star Trek, is so goddamn bleak.
Yeah.
It's like everything they've done is just evil mirror universe, evil and it's like, it's just so bleak and so doesn't make me excited for the future.
Yeah. It doesn't make me excited for the next episodes of the show is the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just like, Star Trek generally, no matter what the show is, no matter what part of the franchise is, it is based in hope for the future that the future will be positive enough that, we can explore the stars and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It gets dark every now and then, obviously, like, Deep Space Nine got dark in a specific way, but Ben Sisko is still a Starfleet commander.
Yeah. He's trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. He's trying to do the right thing. He's still part of this, ethos that is generally a positive outlook on what is to come or what could come. These shows are so depressing. And they're all just about horror and negativity, and I find them difficult to watch because of that. Like when I was watching that trailer, and it's like I assume the thing that Pike is struggling with is like the knowledge that he's gonna die in a wheelchair or whatever.
Yeah, he'll be in a wheelchair. Yeah, I don't know. He gets cured at the end or something, doesn't he? So he's got happiness coming to him.
Oh, he does? I thought he just went to the Big Head planet and died there.
I'm exposed. He gets wheelchair bound, and then they do something. They send him back to the fantasy planet so he can be happy.
Yeah, the cage.
Yeah. That's a happy ending for a guy who's in a wheelchair and can't speak.
Yeah, I guess. But like, even so, when I saw that trailer, I was like, why does he have to have a fucking tortured past? Everybody has a goddamn tortured past.
Yeah,
he's dealing with baggage and blah 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 blah, and it's like it just becomes hacky to me at a certain point. If he is dealing with the thing that he knows he's going to die, sure, but like, I don't know. It's just everything is so bleak and negative in a lot of shows, not just Star Trek, but like the fact that every one of these Star Trek shows is so dark and bleak. It's just, I get so exhausted by it.
Yeah.
Because
the difference to me is that like The Wire is a bleak show, but The Wire is genuinely funny too at the same time.
Sure.
Like it's this, my problem with a lot of modern TV that try to be prestige and are not prestige is that they think that the thing that made the shows prestige is that they focused on like serious material, but the great shows recognize that even in the darkest of times, there is levity in characters' lives, and like there are funny things that happen. Like, I don't know if you watched The Leftovers. That was the problem with The Leftovers first season, and apparently they fixed it in the second season. But the first season was just so relentlessly bleak, and you're left sitting there like, someone surely must have been happy that the disappearing happened, right? There must be somebody in the world who's happy and made a business off of this and is making money off of it or something. But they don't do that. And Star Trek is the same way. It's when they try to insert levity, it comes in as like the writers insert joke here moments. It's like it's not organic to anything. And I find it really frustrating and sort of tiring. I think it's honestly to me, I think it's I mentioned this in the Discovery thing. It seems like some kind of generational shift where this is an extremely therapized generation writing these shows now. And they rely heavily on the fact that like just sort of an acknowledgement of emotion is enough to carry things. Like that's all that there is to stuff. And I just see a lot of, I don't know how I would describe it. I see a lot of like the commercialization of emotion in it in a way that's not insightful. It doesn't make you feel better. It doesn't make you think about things in a different way. It's just a kind of dumb acknowledgement that people feel emotions at different points. And it's frustrating. I had my rant in the Discovery season. It's written by sort of like a generation that's coming up that doesn't really have a story to tell. And I think that's where like, the story to tell in this modern context is like what's happening in Ukraine and the complexity and stuff there. And this group of writers doesn't seem to have anything about, like they missed Vietnam, you know? Like they missed, it doesn't have to always be war, but they missed like the bad times that like the TNG and TOS writers came up during Vietnam and had something to say about it. And this generation came up during the 80s and 90s where things were genuinely like pretty good at that part for the most part. So,
well, it's funny because I was just talking to a friend of mine about rock and roll music or in the 90s and how it's such a fascinating time for music because you've got like this alternative rock thing that comes up that is got like such a very specific sound that only exists between like the years of 1991 and 1997. And then it just disappeared off the face of the planet. But it's like everything is so positive and it's all like, it's like the one time in the last 50 years where like white people felt happy and safe.
Yes.
And so like everything that was being put out because they were driving everything was just all like happier and say, and I'm not even saying that like is a good thing, but it's just like,
what do you mean by happier? I guess like you're saying that they're happy in the grunge movement, because I guess just to clarify, I would say that grunge came about at a time where, since there are no larger problems, your internal problems take priority over everything. Yes, yeah. It's like, I think it's a larger sort of global thing where it's like for everybody in America, especially, you know, the people who had the money to feel this way, history was over, as they called it. It was the end of history because everything was fine. Yep. And so like even punk music and metal was kind of positive. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. You know? And then it starts to taper off, but it's like, I mean, could swing music have ever come back without
white people feeling way too good about themselves. It shouldn't happen. Well, it shouldn't happen.
I always have that thing. That's why
you're overlooking something, guys.
That's why white people like to camp, because they're like, they subconsciously know they've had it too good, so they're like, I need to lie in dirt for the night to just know to punish myself. And that's why I think that's what anti-vax sentiment is largely. It's like things are too good. Yeah. I'm not going to allow things to continue to be so good. So that's what I think that this writing crew is. It's like it's just born of like this. Like, what's the problem in these shows? I don't. Yeah, really understand.
I mean, the biggest thing that popular culture and like the people had to deal with through the 90s was the fact that the president had an affair.
Yes,
basically. And I am 100%. I know other stuff, real stuff, was happening in places outside of the United
Kosovo,
States.
Clay.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% aware of that. But like a lot of people weren't really paying attention to that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't impact
in this country
us.
anyway.
Yeah, doesn't impact our lives.
Yeah, we get blinders. This country has blinders on about all that stuff. But it's like, yeah, I think there's that certain thing where it's like now it's kind of swinging back the other way, where you think about all of the things we've experienced in just the past 20 years, and it's like it's just a ton of shit that there was 10 years or so, maybe 15 years or so, where everything kind of was like, okay, you know, the wall came down and stuff and all that, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then now the pendulum's kind of swinging back the other way, and now people are living through stuff again.
Maybe we'll have great Star Trek episodes in 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the kind of like cynical take is like, man, it's great that there's a totalitarian who's the president now, because imagine how good the art's going to be. It's like, yeah, okay, sure, I guess, but I'd prefer.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. No, I know. Yeah, I don't know.
And I apologize if everything I just said came off as like tone deaf, because I'm trying to find the pocket of this where I can talk about it, but also it be understood that I know that everything I'm talking about only applies to a certain level of like privilege, for lack of a better word.
Sure, the tastemakers.
Yeah. So I don't want to. I hopefully I didn't sound too ignorant of all of the horrible things that were happening in the 90s.
Well, we can talk about how rap music of the 90s ignored the horrible impact that that the culture was having on the inner city black youth of that time and everything like that. We'll do that in the next episode. Penance is this one, and it's done. So, thanks everybody for listening. I don't know what else there is really to say about this one. Thanks for supporting the show on Patreon, all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Means a lot. Hope you enjoyed this. No one else is listening to it. And we'll be back with the next 8 episodes of this. There's only 10 in this season of Picard, I think. And I don't know what the next one is called. I don't think they've released that yet. But they have to go into the past in the next episode, right? They have to?
I seriously hope so.
They must. Has to be a reason. Should we just do random quick prediction? Do you want to go with your prediction that Girardi becomes the Borg queen from the first episode?
Yeah, I think it's got to be her, or it's got to be a character we haven't met yet.
I'm trying to think of what Q's sickness could mean. Is it just that he's desperate for Picard to learn his lesson at this point? Is that all that's motivating him?
I don't know, because like that's another thing that's confusing is like, so this thing happens in the year 2024. Why are you blaming Picard?
Right. Or, yeah, I mean, that's...
Like, what is the penance he's I mean, I guess, obviously that's, I guess, part of the thing we're going to discover, but...
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. We can you'll use the Discord for...
Like... What don't you think that this might have been a more interesting inroad to this story if they show up, I don't know, maybe I guess this is kind of what they did do, but if they get that distress call, the Stargazer goes and picks up Jean-Luc, they show up, and then as the Borg is like, hey, we need help, Picard is like, no, fuck these people, blow them all up. And like immediately they just open fire and just everything destroys this Borg ship. And then he gets ripped into this other alternate dimension where it's like, yeah, you know, that's what happens when you're just a dickhead and don't listen to people when they're trying to ask for help, no matter who they are.
Right.
Whereas, I mean, technically that's happening because he's calling for the destruction of the ship, but I don't know. It's not really thematically laid into in a way that I feel like that's what they're going for. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I guess that my problem with that storyline would be that it's a. I find it sort of wrong to try to humanize the Borg too much. Like humanize them in a sense where they are somehow sympathetic characters, because I think that they're built to be totally unsympathetic. Really,
right? Yeah.
So I don't know. Like it would be tough there if it's like Picard starts slaughtering Borg and then he jumps into this alternate timeline where the Borg have been slaughtered and it's like a tables have turned for humanity kind of thing.
Yeah. I guess I'm just trying to, my brain is trying to figure out how these things could be all thematically connected.
Yeah.
And I wonder if am I not giving the show the time to breathe, or is that something that should have been sort of laid out in some fashion?
No, it should have been there from the start. They that thing, it's completely unacceptable when Q just goes, "You know why you're here, Picard." And Jean-Luc has this shocked look on his face, and then they cut to the next scene, and they never talk about what the hell they're talking about for any reason. My
here's a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, my crazy prediction will be Agnes dies this season. Even if she's not the Borg queen, she will die at some point.
Yeah, they're definitely setting her up for some sort of sacrifice or something. Like it feels like that's the way they're going. I was going to say, here's a question. How come this isn't the episode that Guinan's in?
In the alternate future, you mean?
Yeah. Because remember the last time this happened, Guinan knew what was going on.
Oh, that's
How come
right.
he doesn't go to Guinan's place and go, Guinan, what the hell's going on?
That's a good point. He should check in with her. She would know. That's a great scene in yesterday's Enterprise. Maybe
that would have been like such a better way to introduce her too. If it's just like, what the hell's going on? He's like, I know someone who might have some answers to this. And then, it's the 10 forward bar. Hey, how's it going? I'm old now because the writers made me come up with a reason.
Thanks everybody for listening. We will see you next week.